I do have a special guest that I'm bringing on. This is part 2 of growing your own food. So Logan is going to come on. He actually lives in an apartment and he's going to show you how to grow your own food when you live in an apartment. So welcome, Logan.
Hello, thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Thanks so much for coming on. So Logan, to start out, I want you to explain to everyone, first and foremost, introduce yourself, let everybody know who you are, and why did you decide to grow your own food?
All right, so my name is Logan Grendel. I'm a writer, I'm a dog guru, I'm a musician. I do a lot of things, wear a lot of hats. But when I moved into the place I live in now, my family's from the South, and they've always been like into growing their own stuff. My mom always says, like, they didn't realize that they were poor when they were younger because they grew their own stuff. They had chickens in the backyard, so they just were used to providing for themselves. And so I was like, I wonder how we can do that living here. So when I moved into the place I'm in now, there's just a backyard. And I was like, let me try it. And people in the building were like, that's cool. And so I got some 5-gallon buckets and some soil and some seeds. And the rest is, as they say, history. And now I produce, basically between, I would say about mid-May and November, I produce 90% of my own vegetables. Like I don't have to buy, unless I want something I don't grow. I don't really have to buy anything.
And where are you located for people who are, wondering in reference to the timeline, May and November?
I'm in NYC. I'm in Harlem.
So you guys hear that? Logan's in the city and he's still doing the damn thing.
Yeah.
All
it's
right.
highly possible.
Exactly. Like I want to show them, you sent me a couple of videos and I just want to show one of them really quick. I want to show the first one because I want to show you guys exactly how how he does this. So
a little kale appreciation post.
Okay, Logan, you want to set this one up?
Yeah, okay. So this I can hear myself saying it's a kale appreciation post. So kale is like the staple crop of the garden because it's like highly nutrient dense. It is frost hardy. It's pretty easy to grow. It's got just a ton of it's also like weather hardy. So if there's like storms, et cetera, it usually survives. And you can just, I can just go out there and just munch kale and I'm basically all day. And so I'm kind of just going through, and what I'll do is I'll show you the different sizes of kale plants that I have. Everything from, well, you'll see, yeah. But it's basically me just showing you the different sizes that you can grow from the same seed in roughly the same conditions.
Okay, so here we go. I'm gonna mute my mic, Logan, because my computer with this will give an echo, so I'm just gonna mute my mic. But feel free to talk yourself.
Okay. A little kale appreciation post. Though a lot of my garden updates could be called that. But here you can see one. I've been plucking it from the bottom, but call that harvest when hungry style. You just eat from the bottom. We have here a giant one with my hand to the leaf just for a size comparison. Sort of medium-sized ones here and here. And let's go over here to just this little small one in a little regular flower pot. So all of them are equally tasty and edible. Just just showing you kind of what you can get from the same seed in the same conditions with whatever space you've got. Yeah. So that gives you an idea basically of, you can use a regular flower pot. You don't have to have a ton of space. There's nothing planted in the ground. Everything is in some kind of container. Most of them are repurposed or found, or I built them. I did buy, I bought some of them, but largely what we're talking about here is just, anything I could find. The thing that cost me the most actually is the soil, because I wanted to start with like good soil. But excuse me, once you have the soil, you can, I have a worm compost. You just put your food scraps and paper in there, and the worms help to process that. You throw that in there, and maybe like a little bit of fertilizer once or twice per season. And there you have it.
Yeah, and I'm glad you sent this because I want everyone to see this is in a pot. So this is the common problem a lot of people run into that live in apartments, right? Like you don't have a yard or you
Yeah.
don't have the right soil
Yeah.
in that yard. And so this is something Logan's showing you. You can grow this in a pot. How long does it take for kale to typically grow?
I am about to start seeds because it's a little bit early to plant directly outside because we still might get some some freezing nights. But um, I would say like from seed to eating, like a couple months, like 30, 60 days. 60 days is safe. And also on like a package of seeds, it will generally tell you, what the time to maturation is. But the good thing is also if you do like I do, like the harvest when hungry, you're just plucking a little bit, you can pluck it at different stages. So you can get baby kale, you can get full grown kale, you can just take it whenever it's ready, and you just don't take enough from any single plant to destroy the plant. And actually, that process helps because you're pruning. So, and you're pruning from the bottom. So the ones that are like the larger leaves take more energy from the plant and from the soil. So taking those off sends more to the plant, to the leaves that are still growing.
And this is awesome because this is the first time I've seen someone grow their own food not directly in the ground.
Yeah.
So this goes to show you guys that it can be done. So like Logan probably doesn't have to go to the grocery store. And I mean, we had like a kale shortage here. We had a spinach shortage. Like none of the grocery stores had spinach at one point last year.
Yeah.
So someone like Logan would be all set because he's growing his own. What would you say are some of the foods that are the hardest or that you feel like they take a little bit longer?
Um, so squashes are difficult because squashes usually need a very deep and hardy root system. So those you'll want to grow. If you want to try those, you want to use like, it's like plastic bins that you use for moving or just storing stuff in. I have a couple of those out there that are like, they're good and deep, and they also are like wide enough that you can get root systems enough. So squashes, like cucumbers, things like that. But squashes, if you can grow some squashes, squashes are great because they're nutrient dense. I'm thinking about like, I think this whole thing came from the idea of like we can't count on any of the systems. You know what I mean? We don't none of this. It's not built for us. We don't whatever. So we have to build systems concurrently to the systems that exist and not wait for the glorious revolution because that's just going to be a mess. We got to do what we can do now, whatever that is. And people are like, "Oh, well, that's not going to feed everybody." That's fine. If it feeds me and a couple other people, that's great. If it gives us just time to plan our next move, great. You know what I mean? It's all about just doing something rather than thinking you got the full answer right now.
Exactly. There's a couple questions here for you. Lock Lawn says, "What type of kale is that?"
Lachlan. That okay. That there's three kinds of kale. I have dinosaur kale, which is the large one. It's dinosaur or lacinato kale. I think it's the same name. And I have curly kale as well. And sometimes I grow the ornamental purple kale. But they're technically all the same seed. So
And where can people purchase the seeds?
I mean I don't fuck with Amazon, so I go on eBay and buy like a whole bunch. I'll buy like thousands of seeds, and I just have at this point I've collected seeds over the years. You can also just get them at like your local garden shop. They have flowers, but they also have vegetables in most of them.
Awesome. Sweary Fairy is asking, "Is it best to harvest leafy greens from the bottom?"
So depending on what kind of leafy green we're talking about, like depends on how they grow. The way that kale grows, like the ones on the bottom will just be the largest, right? Because like it grows out from the middle. So as they grow, it kind of, spreads out. And so the largest ones are on the bottom. So those it definitely is. Spinach, not so much. And
Mm.
spinach also doesn't like the middle of summer. So arugula is also a great one. Arugula grows fast. It grows way faster than kale. Tasty, peppery, good nutrition. But you got to grow that in the beginning of the season and at the end of the season, because the heat of summer will kill it.
And you guys heard Logan mention that one thing about kale, even if you have a storm, kale seems to hold up for whatever
Yeah,
reason.
it's pretty strong. The stalks are strong, and it survived. To be fair, plants are more resilient than we give them credit for being. Kind of like people, but in more like literally directly in some ways. They survive pretty well. It's the taller, bigger ones. I lost my sunflowers in a storm, but the kale plants and most of the smaller plants tend to do okay.
Awesome. Sebastian is asking, hey Logan, are there any community gardens in Harlem?
There are actually. When I first started, I was like, I don't know anything about this, so I volunteered at a local community garden. It's called Harlem Grown. They have a couple of locations, and there are also just individual community gardens dotted around Harlem that I'm sure they would appreciate if you went to and offered to help out. So yeah, that's a good place to get started and just get involved locally. And if you've got, I always say, whatever you can do, whether it's just to contribute to someone else's, if you've got a backyard, you can get people to help you, or if you have coin, buy that empty lot and turn it into a garden. Whatever you have the resources to do.
Awesome. So there's another video I want to play here, and this one shows Logan in action. This was the one I saw when we were doing the General Strike Summit, and I was like, holy crap. I was like, how does he do all of this?
Oh yeah.
So here we go.
Oh, it's no sound. I can tell you one of the benefits of having a completely modular garden is that, so, I've got to do, when you've got to do like hedge trimming or just basic maintenance, you can just move it around, just move the plants around. You don't have to worry about disturbing the soil or like harming the plant if you don't like, and here I don't get ideal sunlight, so I can move them around for their sunlight needs depending on the life cycle of the plant. And also, if you wanted to, if you in an emergency situation, you take all the plants, put them in the back of a van, and your whole garden goes somewhere else with you. It's completely modular, and it's, I think, the most sustainable way to do it. Here, I also, some plants. The great thing is you can put plants next to each other that you wouldn't be able to put next to each other if they were in the soil, but sometimes they get a little unruly, and the ones with vines, they grab onto the other plants, and so you got to move them around. They're kind of like the obstreperous kids in class. You got to make sure they're next to other plants that can take it. So yeah, it's great to have things be completely mobile.
Awesome. Rockfin comment from Javi. I grow a lot of my own food. It's gross to me how many touch your food before you buy it. It's
That's
also
real.
much cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, you will put in time. It's like, I would say, half an hour to an hour a day guaranteed, right? And then you'll have every week you got to put in a few hours for maintenance, and then every couple of weeks you got to do some major project. You got to make sure to stay on top of insects and potential visitors, squirrels, birds, et cetera, because preventing pests. I use a couple of different things for larger pests like the squirrels, the birds, etc. I have an ultrasonic solar powered, produces sound that keeps smaller animals away, and it doesn't bother the dogs because I have dogs. I work with dogs, and I also use I use diatomaceous earth for some of the plants. That is pretty inexpensive and kills off some of the insects. I also remember to let the spiders and ladybugs, they get to stay. They stay. They are comrades. They live in the garden. Also, yellow jackets. Yellow jackets and I have become friends because they love to eat cabbage worms. So it's a question. And also, you can make soap sprays, and neem oil are basically and I use all natural shit. I want it to be. I don't use. There are things you could buy that are just like straight up chemicals, but
Mhm.
I want to be able to keep the life that I want and get rid of what I don't. So it takes a kind of a granular hand on it. And cabbage worms, you can really just go through and pluck them off by hand, because they will go through kale. You have never seen. Oh, it's ridiculous. They just like gnaw it like it's a cartoon. And she's gone like one day to the next.
Awesome. Sweary Fairy is asking, do you grow beefsteak tomatoes?
I grow a few kinds of tomatoes. Yeah. I actually kind of prefer at this point to grow smaller kinds of tomatoes. Grape tomatoes, orange tomatoes, sun gold tomatoes. Sun gold tomatoes are nice just because they add like that little pop of color throughout the garden. But I do grow several kinds of heirloom tomatoes. But I don't think I grow beefsteak tomatoes. There's like, I think last year I had 5 kinds of tomatoes. Oh, I just mix it up depending on what seeds I have and just like what I'm feeling like, and also what plants flourish from the seed stage. But the smaller ones produce so many, so you just get lots and lots and lots of tomatoes. I think that's kind of the best bang for the buck if you don't have a lot of space.
Thanks for the super chat, Roger Meadows. Suggestions for collard, mustard, and turnip greens.
Now I have grown those too, and I like. I mean, collards. I don't really mess with mustard greens that much, but mustard greens are great to grow. Don't get me wrong. But they gotta get to like a larger size, and I'm also thinking of what I can just kind of pluck, cut, and come away. And collards you can't do that as much with because you got to cook them more. Like kale, sometimes I just eat kale like right off the plant. Directly plant to face. So. Um, but those you can definitely grow those as well. And I would use a larger 5-gallon buckets are kind of the standard. And 5-gallon buckets, you can find those outside of restaurants. They get,
Yep.
yeah, I mean, they throw tons of them out and they don't want them. You just get them, clean them out good, poke some holes on the bottom, and you're good to go.
Yeah, I was about to say, when I waited tables, we used to throw those out all the time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it would be actually great if people just collected those as just a matter of course. And one of the things I love about the whole everything about gardening is sustainability in action. It's like it works together so well. You prevent, this 5-gallon bucket from going to a landfill. You take your food scraps that were going to go to the garbage and that turns into your compost, right? You are
Mhm.
creating food, you're creating community. I've made friends, people on the block that are also growers. We exchange plants, and otherwise we may have had no relationship, but we have now this connection, and it's a local connection that, all types of connections foster community, and like this, there's nothing more we need right now.
I want to show this video as well because I want you guys to see just how beautiful this is. Again, this is one of those times where never say never, right? Even if you live in an apartment. So I want to play this one.
This is what things look like today. It is currently the 11th of June, 2021. And a lot of these plants are really ready to start plucking from. I do harvest when hungry as opposed to harvesting entirely. So I just eat a little bit here and a little bit there, take from, a little bit from each plant so they keep growing throughout the season. And I have consistent food, and, it's basically pruning the plants as well. So it helps to keep them healthy. As you can see, there's just a lot going on, and there's ladybugs and bees, and just and the birds and squirrels have stayed away because of the sonic repeller, so that has done its job quite well. Just a little quick overview. I'll do some more specific tips and tricks quite soon. Much love. Yeah, it is just
Awesome.
it's just possible to do much. We are so much more powerful than we think we are, and a lot of it is just we got to get out of our own way and just try it. Just try shit, and the worst that happens is it doesn't work. But by my first year of doing I think this is going to be the 5th year of the garden. By the first year, I was just giving away tomatoes. I was because I couldn't eat another freaking tomato.
Mhm.
There was just too many of them. So.
Wow, wow. And quick question, where are you getting the pots in the soil?
So a lot of the pots are repurposed thing, the 5-gallon buckets. Flower pots, I've either had them or got them from just people who had them, or I walk by a street and I see someone has put some out. I take them. There are some that I bought, but largely most of the pots are repurposed in some way or other. And the soil is the thing that I spent the most money on. And I
Okay.
just go to the local garden store for that. But I can't recommend anything illegal, but there's plenty of ways to get soil and remediate it. And that's all I'll say. You can just look that up.
Cool. Here's another video here. I'm not going to play the volume because it has music, but
Cool.
here again is Logan at work here. So this is why I tell you guys, like, it can be done. Provides 90% of fresh vegetables, harvest when hungry, May through October. I'm just thinking about all the different things that you can grow.
Yeah. And if you grow something and your neighbor grows something else, you trade. And that's, it's nothing new. It's just literally the most natural way to interact with our world and with the people around us. Like, literally grassroots. You want to talk about grassroots action? Like, it doesn't get any more grassroots than growing food and sharing it with people, and just having that be, like I said, builds community and fosters connection. That's the real stuff. That's the real stuff. And anywhere you live, a balcony, a fire escape, make them tell you not to. And the biggest thing that I'm learning right now is I recently learned that most people live in suburbs. 175 million people, and more than 50% of people live in suburbs, and HOAs don't let them grow food in their lawns. And
Yep.
fight it. Start fighting it now. Make them tell you to stop, because we have no right more than to grow our own food and to interact with our own planet and to feed ourselves. That's just like, if we don't have that, what do we have?
Exactly. Laura is asking, I'll ask my farmer friends if they have tried. Can Sonic work on a large scale? Does it hurt any living creature?
So the one that I have, you can dial it, and so I have it dialed to the point where it won't affect dogs, because there's dogs that live in the building, and I always have dogs around me. So, and it doesn't hurt them. It's just an annoying sound. And the best thing to do is to get one. It's motion activated, because when the sound is constant, they can attenuate to it, and so they're just used to it, and so then they can ignore it. But when it's motion activated, it A, saves power, and B, makes it so that it comes on and it's immediate, and it's more likely to work long term. I don't know how large of an area it will work on, honestly. So that part I can't really speak to, but it's certainly something to certain. And there's plenty of other ways to detract, or to prevent animals from getting into your stuff, but it's going to be a battle, because nature wants food, and you're you're creating food for it. So you just got to work with your particular conditions.
All right, Logan, I have two more questions for you. The first one being, especially living in the city, does the sonic wave keep away rodents?
Yeah. So, I mean, I have, knock on wood, the only rodents I've seen back there have been squirrels. And the squirrels even will generally stay away with the sonic repeller. Squirrels tend to be a little more stalwart than the rats, but I haven't really seen, and also rats. I haven't really known rats to just grab a piece of kale and munch on it. I don't think that's I don't think that's their deal. So there will be some things that birds, especially birds will get into your tomatoes. They will get in, and there's not too much you can do about it. But you know what? I feel like part of that is just like whether it's a spiritual or literal contribution to the ecosystem. Like, it's fine. Like, I'm not a capitalist. I'm not here to take everything. If they get some, it's fine. It's fine. I'm gonna try and keep them away. Uh, Rats prefer pizza. I think they do. I don't think they're on this healthy kick yet. So until they start going vegan, I think we're all right.
All right, all right. A couple more questions. Sweary Fairy is asking, have you found a way to keep lantern flies away? They're so invasive.
Lantern flies. I don't know what a lanternfly is. I know fireflies. I do see fireflies back there sometimes, but they don't eat anything. They're just pretty. There are white flies. White flies are a problem, and you got to deal with those and they're really really tiny. Like they're even difficult to see. So you got to make sure to like actually examine and check your plants. Spray them with neem oil and or the mixture of it's like soap. Like I use a Dr. Bronner's and cayenne pepper and water in some mixture. Mix that up, spray that on the leaves, and different things work on different insects. But lanternflies, I don't know exactly, but I'm sure you can find like some way to do mitigation for insects.
Sebastian is asking any advice for gardening when you have landlords. Ooh, good question.
Oh, I mean, I do. Like, I don't own, I don't. This is not my backyard. If it was my backyard, I would have a way bigger operation, actually. But just the people that own the building were like, sure, I mean, you're gonna build and upkeep a garden and give us food all year? Absolutely. And that would be my biggest advice, would be to show them value, like a little proof of concept and proof that you are beautifying and returning value and just generally ameliorating their situation, and they don't have to do any work for it. They have to either be basically an HOA where they're getting paid to not let you do it, or just kind of real piece of shit. Sorry if I'm not allowed to curse on here, but if they're ordinarily a landlord, and honestly some of them will just be down. It'd just be like, oh, I hadn't thought of that, because that was my situation as well.
Okay. One more question for you. This is from Comrade Cam. What things do you grow, and could you make guides for others to do this?
So I'm kind of working on that for this year. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to do it, but in terms of what things I like to grow, I think in terms of yield, nutrient density, hardiness, and flavor, obviously, right? And a little bit for variety. You want to. So I grow herbs, I grow kale, I grow tomatoes, I grow arugula. Those are the four things that will always be in my garden, always. And then I also just sometimes I'll just want to try out something. I grew quinoa a couple years ago. Uh, Beautiful, beautiful plant, very tall, very lovely, great color, but it's a grain, so it takes so much of it to make food. Which is why I always say a grain-based diet was a mistake. We should be eating fresh green vegetables, because you get more yields from them for the work that's put in, et cetera, et cetera. But and also the other thing, I remember, there's no such thing as weeds. There's just plants that you don't want there. So there will be some weeds, right? Like wild spinach, otherwise known as lamb's quarters. Let some of them grow. They're delicious. They're super nutritious, and you don't have to worry about, like, you don't have to plant them. They just appear. A friend of mine refers to them as volunteer plants, ones that just show up. And so you just let them. Less work for you.
Awesome, awesome. Logan, thank you so much for coming on. It was really important that people hear from someone that lives in an apartment, because a lot of people do. And we've run into this situation like, well, what do we do when we don't have a yard? Or like, where do we start? And so you're the first person that's shown me this, like growing your own food in buckets, in pots as well. So thanks so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Happy to spread the message. And thank you for having me on.
Awesome. Talk to you later.
All right. Have a good one.
Bye.